Welcome to Rooted Agritourism. I'm Dr. Liz Fiedler Mergen, owner of Sunny Mary Meadow, a U-Pick flower farm, wedding florist, and event venue in central Minnesota. Our mission is to serve anyone rooted in agritourism, value-added agriculture, and rural entrepreneurship, the people turning ideas and raw products into thriving businesses and experiences. Let's dig in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Rooted Agritourism. I'm your host, Dr. Liz Fiedler Mergen, and I'm going to talk about something behind the scenes of my business and my farm. And I think that these episodes are extremely helpful. And it is something that I get asked almost every single time I speak, especially locally. It's an interesting question why people ask it, but they say, how many employees do you have? How many people work for you? And the thing is, technically, I have 0 employees. No like full-time, part-time W-2 staff, no traditional team from that sense, but yet the farm still runs. So we host events, we sell flowers. I have a podcast, software as a service platform. I'm a USA Today bestselling author, and I do a ton of speaking engagements. And I work probably 20 hours a week on my actual farm and business year round. And the other 20 to 30 is on my other businesses. But again, not a single one of those has a dedicated actual employee. And that doesn't mean I don't have a ton of people helping and working for me. But I just want to talk about how that works because I have tried it the normal way. And at this stage of my life, my business, it just didn't work for me. So the reality of hiring help, I think that there is this expectation that as your business grows, you hire employees and that's how you scale. But what nobody really talks about is that sometimes having employees doesn't make your life easier. And I've had it all. I've had farm employees who work about 25 hours a week. They come a set shift, like 7 to 2, 3 or 4 days a week, and got a lot of stuff done, and orders were filled, and things that were on the list got checked off. But the tiny things that kept the farm running were not always getting done. So things like, just tidying it up, responding to customers, like once the shift ends, those things just didn't happen. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I, streamline systems, task management, blah, 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 blah. And then I ended up deciding that, nope, I'm going to keep having help on the farm, but I'm actually going to hire a 3-day-a-week, essentially assistant to help run all of my businesses. And again, great in theory, but if that person needs a week off, everything pauses and the balls get dropped. And then I tried an agency route and, freelancers with multiple clients. And the thing is, when you have a W-2 employee, it's expensive. There's payroll taxes. There's now, for example, in the state of Minnesota, safe and sick time. There is retirement that you have to contribute to. I'm not disagreeing that those aren't very important things for an employee, but if the employee doesn't necessarily want it, small businesses like mine can't really eat those extra costs as we're trying to grow. And so it was like I was managing people that were managing tasks, and I wasn't able to manage a business. And so it just, honestly, it wasn't fun. It's no reflection on those past people that have worked for me, anything like that. It's just trying to figure out what was going to be the right fit for me as I focused on other things that I'm passionate about when it comes to the industry and the work that I'm doing, between Rooted Agritourism and my speaking and the coaching and all of those things. And so I kind of stopped trying to force my business into a traditional employer model, and I started to build systems instead. And so technically I still have a ton of help, but it looks very different. So I'm just going to talk about my current setup. I have a freelance lead florist. So she's 1099 and we have a great working relationship. And I pay her very well because she's very talented. But here's the thing, I try really hard to not have her doing the $15 an hour, $20 an hour jobs because she's doing high level production. She's doing design. She's doing things that she is phenomenal at. And because paying someone that's highly skilled to wash buckets or pull weeds, it just doesn't make sense. And so we have a set, she knows what days the weddings need to be done. And we just work it out between us how that ends up happening. Now, full caveat, my hope is in a year or two, she comes on as like full-time florist event manager, and she would do a lot more things like the consultations or things like that. But I just, as of right now, this is what works well for the both of us. And then I have a lot of task-based help during the season. So like bucket washers, harvesters, processors, the flowers come in and they have to be processed. And the bloom room, I literally post like, here's when it's booked. I can unlock, but can someone be around to lock it up? Can someone clean it in between? So it's not this like big long-term commitment. It's not overstaffed. And that's how we've done our event venue. Is I'm very clear that like there is someone available to plunge the toilet if you need help, but we don't have staff to like move tables, bus tables. Like it's not a wedding venue in that way. It's more of like a fancy community center where you get it during the time you're using the room. But, unless we're doing like a flower making activity, you're not going to have our staff necessarily there with you. And then I have what I'd call my retainer based freelancers. And to back up, because my farm is agriculture, I can have those 1099 shifts or those 1099 employees. And, we've had conversations about what that means. Ultimately, like they are, I'm saying, here's the tasks that need to be done. And they say yes or no, whether or not they can work. And if it were to shift to a W-2 system, then it would be like, hey, this is your schedule. These are the hours you are going to be working. And if you can't come, you either need to find a replacement or use your your sick time or your PTO or whatever. And so it's just, there's a lot of little nuances that make a massive difference in, the budget at the end of the day, at the end of the month. So just trying to make it work in a way that everyone is happy. And so then I have what I call my retainer based freelancers. So I have Ryan. He handles my website. He's on a retainer. I pay him the same amount every month. Some months are a ton of work. Some months he doesn't hear from me at all. But I drop tasks into a platform and he executes them. So like when we have different events, or if I say, can you change this on this website page? Or can you add this form? Or can you do this? And if something breaks, he will fix it. If my website is down or something, he handles the Sunny Mary Meadow website. And then I have Ray. She handles a good majority of my social media. So she will create 3 posts a week between Sunny Mary Meadow, Liz Fiedler Mergen, and Farmers to Florists. She does 3 posts a week on each of those. She doesn't do Rooted Agritourism because that's Abby, but she'll put everything into a Google Sheet. Like here's a link to the PDF or the Canva or the reel or whatever. I can preview it, make sure I like it. And then there's the caption. And, I would say, especially when we first started working together, I changed a lot in the captions, but then eventually she learned like what language I like, don't like, whatever. And now I don't have to change a whole lot of it, but I always go in and approve them. She sends me a text every Sunday night and she's like, hey, I emailed it to you on Friday, checking in, you haven't approved it yet. And then I just open the Google Sheet. And then on each of them, I like change the little drop down file to approve. And then she'll go ahead and schedule those posts for the week. I still post once or twice a week on each of those pages, my own posts as like inspiration strikes me for like a funny reel or something like that. But just making sure like there's something really timely about the hours of the farm store or the events that we have going on or whatever. And it's just like, it just works a lot better if I have someone else handling that. And then of course, Abby, podcast producer Abby, you all know and love her. So she handles my podcast production. She turns the episodes into blogs, social posts, gets them into Facebook. And then she comes to a lot of the speaking events to capture content and just kind of helps with all of those big things. We call each other the closest thing that we have to coworkers. We are each other's own marketing team. I've sent so many clients her way. We continue to try to do that. We do kind of keep each other in check when it comes to our own businesses. And like, now I'm blushing because I know she's editing this and reading it, but like, I'm just going to stop because I don't know how else to describe Abby and I's like working relationship. But like to say she's my podcast producer, it seems a little short, but she's so much more than that. And then Julia, I brought on about a year ago and she handles PR, and which sounds like, oh my gosh, you have a PR person, but I hired her during the pretty intense time when there were untrue rumors spreading about my farm and neighbors were upset and they were convinced that I was going to have WeFest, a massive country music festival, and they were never going to have a day of peace again for the rest of their lives. And I just kept telling, newspapers kept contacting me and I just kept saying, no comment, no comment. Cause I was so embarrassed by all of it. It was so untrue. But I don't want to say the wrong thing or be misquoted. And so she helped me navigate that and turn it into positive press and just like share the good news about it. And then now she continues, as I go speak somewhere or a conference or something, she'll make sure that like the local newspaper gets contacted so they know about that. And then there have been a lot of news stories about my farm. Can't share this yet, but there are two pretty big national media that are coming out to the farm in August and September this year. And I let her handle it. And so she's on like a monthly retainer. She basically handles PR for different brands and different businesses. And I never thought that that would be something I would personally be invested in, but it just makes sense because all of those things, like I don't have to pay for marketing. I have someone that does my social media and stuff like that, but like I don't have to pay for ads. I necessarily just try to get other places talking about my farm, my business, my speaking, and then those turn into articles or segments on other platforms. And so like other people's platforms talking about your business is huge. I would say it goes 10 times versus, I can shout at the rooftops how great my flowers are. But if the, local news station comes out and does a big TV segment about how great my flowers are, that's going to reach a lot more new people. That's kind of how that works. And then I have project-based experts. So Caleb and Justin, they're amazing. They're my team. They have a business called Flow Devs, and they are like automations for small businesses. They love to like help creative people like me. And they've helped I know they've helped another wedding venue. I know they've helped a yoga studio, things like that. They can do things that it would take me a month to figure out, and they can do it in like 4 hours. And so I hired them on. I'm like, my MailChimp is a mess. I've got 3,000 customers, but like there's no segments, there's no tags, there's no automations when people fill out, a form or a welcome sequence. Like I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And I was messing around with trying to do it, and I didn't want to accidentally delete anything. And they're like, just let us handle it. And it took like a month, and they just like completely reorganized it and started all these segments and auto flows. And like now when someone fills out a form, they get an email back. It would have taken me a month and I would have thrown my computer out the window. So like whenever I need help with a big project like that, and now we're combining sunnymarymeadowcoaching.com, LizFiedlerMergen.com are merging into one website, and Ray is handling the design of that. But I have Caleb and Justin are going to like handle all of the backlinks to the blog posts because we need to like forward those, because with all of that SEO, with all of the blogs, with every single podcast episode, I get like 25,000 views a month on my website. And so I need to like merge them together and not lose all of that SEO for all those blog posts. So it's complicated, but like just having someone that I can just, hey, here you go. I have a project for you. And they do those things like that for small businesses. And then there are so many platforms that I use that like I probably pay $1,500 a month, seriously, in like softwares and platforms, fees and like things like that. But it saves me 20 hours a week. I'm not kidding. And so like there's one platform I use called Techme, and it'll take a blog and it'll turn it into social posts, Pinterest pins, backlinks, and like just gets that information out there for new people. And then I have, paid versions of Calendly, my scheduling software, Zoom for different meetings. It can record meetings. It can create new links automatically. That's how I meet with my brides. They literally they fill out the form and they just show up on my Google Calendar. Like they fill out a form, an email comes back that says, here's my Calendly link to sign up for a time to meet. They click on it and they're added to my Zoom calendar, like that consultation without me like doing it all. And like I have pricing transparency on my website for my wedding flowers. So those leads that I get are very, very strong leads. They already roughly know the pricing. So it's not like I'm getting someone that probably is not going to buy my flowers. So I have a very strong close rate. So a lot of times from the time they fill out my contact form to the time they are scheduled with me to meet is within a matter of an hour versus they're waiting days and days for someone to get back to them. Square, Stripe, QuickBooks, I use all of those plus PayPal. And then that way with all of those services, my accountant, she only costs me like $100 a month in her fees to handle literally everything across Bloom and Grow LLC, Mergen Enterprises LLC, Sunny Mary Meadow LLC. She reconciles the books out of all of those because I have these paid services that have reports that I can run and just like hand it to her. Here's everything. Here's what's taxable, not taxable. These things cost money. These things cost a lot of money, but they save me dozens of hours. And to like pay a person to do those things, that way I can focus on, most of my work that's in the farm. It's like picking flowers and pulling weeds. And I'm so happy with that. I'm so happy with being able to do the stuff that I actually like doing. And then it just cuts down on the admin time. So I do want to share the honest truth about Sunny Mary Meadow. And like, I am finally giving myself a steady paycheck from my flower farm. And it's not huge, but I also only work about 20 hours a week on the farm. Like combine what everyone else does is a lot more. So my payroll is more expensive, or not payroll. I don't have actual payroll. I have 1099 checks that I write, but the business is doing a lot. So instead of a big payroll, I have a big system. And then I am able to do things like speak at conferences and speak. I do a lot of virtual speaking, a lot of webinars for different groups, probably once or twice a week. And then I'm able to do those things. And so I'm going to share some tips on how to start delegating or hiring. And this isn't something I made up, but it's like the delegation matrix. And it is what I used initially. I found it on a podcast. I believe it's called Well-Oiled Operations. It was a couple years ago. Think of it as like a square. There's 4 categories. So in the upper left-hand corner, you've got things you suck at and you don't like. So for me, that is website stuff and accounting. So adding events on the website and making sure, like I always would miss something and then the link wouldn't work, or I forget to add the sales tax or whatever. And like just all the details and making it look pretty whenever I was adding a new item. And that just made it so much easier. Like, nope, I'm just going to literally put it into a little task manager, and then Ryan will make that and make sure it looks good. And then of course, accounting. That was like the first thing that I got rid of. Cause for me, now that I have to do monthly sales tax, I have to reconcile everything every month. Some things are taxable, some things aren't. And so I have, all of my expenses are just done every month so that I actually know like what my profit was each month. And so, yeah, accounting and website stuff, things I suck at and I don't like, delegated those. The next thing is things you like, but you're not good at. And then the next thing is things you're good at, but you don't like. So that means you got to get rid of some of the things you like doing before you get rid of the things you don't like doing, because it's whether or not you're good at them. So for me, that was like honesty of Canva, right? And I'm so slow at it. It doesn't make sense for me to make this. It would take me to make like a carousel that's like detailed, a reel. It would make me like 2 hours on Canva, and it wouldn't look good. I'm just not good at like, and it would have like 6 different kinds of fonts, and I'm just not good at it. I'm not good at like graphic design or designing those posts and stuff like that. So it's like, nope, let's get rid of that. Third thing that I've started giving up now is things I'm good at, but I don't necessarily like. And that might be email marketing or pulling weeds or things like that. And these are things I'm just trying to actively get off my plate. And finally, the most important category, this is where I'm at right now. It's hard, but I'm starting to give up some of the things I am good at and I like. I just know that I can't do it all. If I can be the one to give the tours on Friday, I want to. If I can be the one that is, teaching a class or teaching a workshop, I want to, because the farm is, they want the owner to be there. But I can't work 24/7. I can't work every day. My kids need me. I can't say yes to everything. And so, right now I love meeting with the brides. I love the initial consultation with the brides. I don't want to give that up. I want that to be me. However, at some point, I have a freelance florist that works essentially Thursdays and Fridays and does the designs for the weddings. And then in the off season, in the winter time, she does, any floral orders that come in, she'll just make them, but also like recipe planning for the upcoming weddings, and then like some odds and ends things. And if we don't have a ton of work for her to do, then she would sometimes just rather spend time with her kids. But we've talked about, hey, in a year or two, once her youngest is in school, maybe she comes on full time, 4 days a week. She's the floral manager and she works, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that. But she also does the consultations with the brides or something like that. It would save a lot of that back and forth time when I like sit down, meet with them, have to repeat it all to her. Like it would just be easier for her to like make those recipes and plan if she's the one who talked to the bride. But I don't want to give that up. And so it's that, what do we protect? How do we figure it out? But those are all things that you just have to keep deciding, like, what are you going to outsource? And I mean, truly, even my book that I wrote, my memoir, was sort of off-sourced. And that's because I decided to go through a hybrid traditional publisher. And so I could have self-published and I definitely would have made more money per book, but they handled the editing, the formatting, the printing, the distribution, all of those back-end logistics. So yeah, they get a pretty big cut of every book that is sold, but like I could focus on writing, storytelling, and selling the book. Those are my 3 jobs. And they could do the rest of like making sure that it's available on all these sites, the cover and the formatting and the copyright and all those things. But, the honest truth, like I said, I gave up that margin on those books, but I saved so much time, energy, and I was actually able to make the book successful. So like bringing someone on to help with the overall project, sometimes we have this, I feel like as farm kids, I mean, this is definitely how I grew up. And that's still, in many ways, like you just do it yourself. You just get gritty. Like my late husband, Josh, if he could see some of the things that I'm paying money for, because he always said, he's like, I'm not going to pay someone to do something that I can do. Like that was his like mantra and his motto. Like, I am not paying someone to do something that I can do myself. That's how you save money. But to me, it's like, but what can I be doing instead? And if I can go speak at a conference or go down to, the Twin Cities and it's an hour drive and there's an insurance company that wants me to come and give them the old razzle dazzle to their employees and remind them why they sell these products and all these things, like, and get paid a couple grand to do that. Like if I'm doing all these little nitty gritty tasks all the time, I can't do those things. And so it's like, you have to look at, what is the best use of your time? What is the best investment in your time? And so just keep in mind that like, yes, your business might be seasonal, but it's unpredictable. It's layered. You've got products, events, customers, marketing, and sometimes traditional staffing doesn't fit that model, but having systems, having freelancers, having specialists, having softwares, that can help you. Do I think I'll ever have a full-time employee? Yeah. Like I said, I really hope so. I hope in like 2 years that this happens, but we're not there yet. And neither of us want that quite yet, but we're working toward that. And like I said, I have nothing against employees. I'm just saying like hiring before you have the systems down of what they will be doing can be really costly. And so if you feel like hiring has made your business harder, you are not alone, and you don't need necessarily, people here like many hours, but just a better system. Like I said, and a lot of these people, they work for me 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. And then they have a lot of clients that they do these things for to piece it all together. And sometimes the best team doesn't look like the traditional team, but just keep that in mind. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated, share it with another farmer or business owner who's trying to figure this out. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Rooted Agritourism. If you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star review and share it with someone who would find it helpful or inspiring. Your support helps us reach more rural entrepreneurs, dreamers, and doers just like you. You can explore all of our resources at sunnymarymeadowcoaching.com, where you'll find each episode in blog form along with free resources to help grow your business. You'll also find info on upcoming on-farm and virtual workshops, classes, and courses. Be sure to check out our monthly membership, Foundations of Peddling Perishable Products, where you'll get access to a full library of our original course content, plus ongoing support through monthly virtual meetups with others in the industry. Just click the link in the show notes or our bio to learn more. We'd love to have you join us. Until next time, keep growing with purpose and stay rooted.